Hi, eighth graders. I'm going to go ahead and review biotic and abiotic factors with you. I'm going to try to do it quickly so the video is not too long. Okay, abiotic and biotic factors. What part do they play in an ecosystem? Hopefully you know that by now. And how do organisms and populations in an ecosystem depend on and compete for biotic and abiotic factors? Okay, so the levels of organization in an ecosystem start with an organism. An organism is one individual form of life, which could be any specific type of plant, animal, bacteria, protist, or fungus. Okay, so when you have multiple organisms in an ecosystem, that's called a population. So like the population of Midlothian is how many thousands of people, humans. Okay, so think of a population as just that number of organisms. So it's multiple amounts of organisms in an ecosystem. Okay, they're not necessarily identical, and not all members of the population are equal in their ability to survive and reproduce. Okay, so oopsie. Next, you've got a community. A community is different species of organisms in a specific area. Alrighty, an ecosystem is all of the living or biotic and all of the non-living or abiotic factors in an area. Ecosystems can only support a certain number of individuals based on the amount of food, water, living space, mates, and other resources, including sunlight and just living conditions. Bio means life. It's a prefix meaning life, like biology is the study of life. Living or once living organisms that are in an ecosystem. I'm sorry. So biotic means, starts with bio, it means life. And it's important to remember that biotic factors are living, or once living. So like dead leaves are considered biotic factors. Things that were once living. Okay, so all animals, plants, fungi, and bacteria. Sorry, I was reading an email from Evan Larson. Hi, Evan. All right, abiotic factors. Abiotic factors, the A means not or without, not living. Okay? They are non-living elements in an ecosystem that are essential for those biotic factors to be able to survive. So water, air, soil. Soil's got rocks and minerals. Plants need those to survive. Sunlight and temperature. Obviously, if temperature is too cold, then some biotic factors would not survive, including, or the opposite, too hot. Alrighty, so real quick, 2 mice produce 56 baby mice each year. Each time these mice had 56 babies each year. I'm not going to try to calculate that right now. But why does that not really happen? Well, because mice aren't at the top of the food chain. So luckily there's other animals that get their energy from mice, and therefore that keeps the population and that ecosystem evened out, okay? Because I certainly don't want my ecosystem being taken over by mice. Ooh. All right, carrying capacity. This is interesting, okay? So an ecosystem has the capacity to only carry a certain amount of species. So the carrying capacity is the largest number of individuals of the same species that an area can support. All right, so only a certain area can support a certain number of species. Okay, if you have a little pond and you have way too many fish in that pond, there's not going to be enough food and fish are going to die. Okay, so the carrying capacity of that pond is going to be a certain number of fish. If the population exceeds the carrying capacity, some individuals will die or move to another location. And carrying capacity is determined by elements called limiting factors. Okay, so the number of a species that can live in an area is determined by limiting factors. I'll let y'all just read over that. Oh my, how would the bass affect it? Yeah, that wouldn't be good. I knew that was going to happen. Okay, limiting factor. An abiotic or biotic factor that limits the number of individuals that can live in an ecosystem. It keeps the population from growing too large. Okay, so limiting factor can be any abiotic or biotic factor. Alrighty, that limits the number of individuals. So, and you are very familiar with biotic and abiotic factors right now. So I won't keep going on to it. So here's an example. How do biotic factors limit other organisms? So what are limiting factors when it comes to biotic factors? Food, competition for food when resources are scarce. Fewer organisms can survive. When resources are plentiful, greater numbers of organisms can survive. Okay? Kind of like what we're dealing right now with the pandemic. But people are competing for food they don't need to. They're just taking it all off the shelf because they're being crazy. All right. How do biotic factors limit other organisms in their environment? Predator-prey relationships. The greater the number of prey, the greater number of predators. And the fewer number of prey, the fewer number of predators. Parasitism. Okay, that can also limit the ability for organisms to live in an ecosystem. Parasitism is when an organism lives off a host organism, sometimes killing the host. So an example would be worms in the digestive tracts of any type of human or animal. Mistletoe and trees, pine bark beetles invade and kill pine trees. That's not nice. Okay, disease is also a limiting factor. Okay, disease is also a limiting factor, which we can unfortunately relate to right now. Another biotic factor is human activities. Humans can be a negative influence on ecosystems, but they can also help ecosystems. But yes, clearing out forests and developing areas where animals were living, that definitely can hurt ecosystems. All right, we're going to skip that right now because I'm trying to hurry. All right, abiotic factors. Remember, non-living things, how do they affect an ecosystem? Well, obviously the sun, if it's blocked and photosynthesis isn't able to occur, then plants are going to compete for the sunlight. And the plants that can't reach the sunlight are going to die. Temperature, warm, lush areas support greater numbers of populations with less competition. Cold, harsh areas support limited numbers of populations with greater competition. Okay, soil. If soil is rich, there's less competition. If the soil is not rich, then there's less competition. I'm sorry, more competition. Water. Of course, water is very important. The more available it is, the less competition there will be for it. The less available it is, the more competition. Okay, abiotic factors, changing conditions just for any type of natural disaster, things that aren't necessarily planned, like a drought, flood, volcanic eruption, earthquakes. Those can definitely bring about changes in populations, sometimes just temporarily or sometimes permanently. And we're going to talk more about that later in this unit. Okay. Think about what might happen in this ecosystem. A drought occurs and all the water in the pond dries up. How many of the biotic organisms would survive? How would they be able to survive? Well, if the fish can swim to a place where there is water, then they could possibly survive, but there would probably be a carrying capacity in that small area of water where many would die. Then the animals that eat the fish, they are going to have to find somewhere else to live because their availability of energy will be gone. So they're either going to die or they're going to go find somewhere else to live. It's all about surviving, just like Miss Corbin teaches you. I try to give you everything you can to survive and do well in science. I tell you, I can lead you to the water, but I can't make you drink. Same here. You got to learn how to survive. If you're not, you're going to die. That's just life. Sorry. All right. All biotic and biotic factors are interrelated in nature. You will find that if one factor is changed or removed, it impacts the availability of other resources within the system. Okay, so water was obviously removed from this ecosystem, and therefore the animals that need water to survive are going to have to move, or that population is going to decrease because animals are going to die. Not doing that. Hopefully you can list abiotic and biotic factors in an ecosystem and how organisms and populations in an ecosystem compete for biotic and abiotic factors. You do have a 15-question quiz tomorrow, so please save this PowerPoint. I have a copy of the PowerPoint. You don't have to watch this video, but review this and then review all the notes and all the things you have done this week, okay, guys? All right, bye.